jury. Proving a claim is a lot like building a sandcastle. You have to have sand and water for that sandcastle to stand. Imagine the sand being the claim here today, and that water being the elements and the evidence and the facts provided. And just like a sandcastle won't stand without water, a claim can't stand without sufficient facts and reliable testimony. I'm Daniel Faulkner. This is my counsel, Ms. Amanda Bashirs. We represent Big A Utility Company. Big A Utility is an electric company that repairs outages around the state here in Armadillo. We will be talking about the actions of Dana Malanta today because he's an employee of Big A. Now the defense says I'm going to get up here and muddy the waters, when actually I'm going to simplify it and clear it up for you. You see, he gave this big grand statement about everything that happened before Dana Malanta pulled out of the cemetery that night where the accident occurred. Big A received a call that night. Mr. Malanta went out to investigate the power outage. He pulled into the cemetery at Laidlow to attempt to find the transformer pole. That was the problem. After he investigated a little bit, he found that pole and decided that he had to get closer. And what you'll learn is that he backed out carefully, and they looked and did not see any headlights. He backed out facing south, the direction of the one-way. Came to a complete stop, put his truck in first gear, and started forward. And that is when he felt Mr. Little hit the back of the truck. Now what happened that night was a horrible accident, and we apologize, Ms. Richardson, for all of your loss. But you have to understand that you have to leave your emotions outside of the courtroom. Liability doesn't attach just because the accident here today is saddening. You see, they have to prove by a preponderance of the evidence those elements that they just put up on that board. And what that means, if you can picture the scales of justice, if it's even 50-50, there are no reliable testimony and no facts and no good evidence, then you have to find Big A not liable. And obviously, if it tips in our favor, it's the same. The defense talked about what all witnesses we were going to call today. But what they didn't tell you is everything those witnesses are probably going to tell today in court. They're going to call Mr. Shepard, the police officer from that day. And what you're going to learn from his testimony is the quality or lack thereof of the investigation that he conducted that day. He spoke about Mr. Mitchell's guidelines. What he didn't tell you was that Mr. Shepard took his class with the same guidelines, and he did not follow them either. They'll call Miss Lisa Richardson to the stand, and what you'll learn from her is that she doesn't know what her husband was doing for those 2 hours and 42 minutes between when she left the house until the accident. You'll learn from her that he was drinking before he got in his vehicle and drove that night. And you'll learn from Mr. Shepard's testimony that he was drinking when he had the accident. He was still drinking. We're going to call Mr. Mitchell to the stand today. And you'll learn that what he found from the accident and from his investigation differs greatly from what Mr. Shepard is going to say. Who's right and who's wrong for you to decide? One thing's a fact, is that it's obviously not set in stone. We're going to call Mr. Malanta to the stand today. What you'll learn from Mr. Malanta is that he was doing his job that evening. He was out restoring the power so that we can have lights here in this courtroom today. What you'll learn is that he backed out carefully and he looked. He didn't get out of the truck and look. Is that necessary? I saw in the headline. For those reasons, for the fact that there is no reliable testimony from the defense's witnesses, there are no stone-cold facts except for what Mr. Malanta is going to say. He's the only witness here today that was present at that scene when the accident occurred. For those reasons, just as the same counsel won't stand without witness, this claim can't proceed without those elements and that evidence. And for those reasons, you need to find Big A Utility not liable. Thank you.